Turns out I might just be a big buffoon and jump the gun on the whole head gasket thing. Um, when it was bubbling and shit last night, I believe the coolant just got to probably 200 degrees, and because it was water and radiator cleaner instead of coolant, that's probably why it was bubbling out like that. Um, Sometimes the most important thing in life is admitting when you're wrong, and I think I might be wrong on this, so we're going to go ahead, do the rest of the work, finish the coolant flush, transmount, get the clutch switches in and stuff. I'm going to give the car back to the customer, have them drive it for a couple days, and just keep an eye on the cooling system and see what happens. But the good news is we figured out the boost issue. I don't know why they unhooked the N75, but all it is the whole time is the clutch switch and the tune trying to two-step. So trans mount here, you can see it right here. In order to do that, we did jack up this side of the car just so we had enough room to get the jack under. We want to support the transmission before we disconnect anything. We're going to take the battery out. Probably remove this intake just because it's going to be easy to get out of the way. And then it's actually not too bad. The bottom of the battery hold down box thing has to come out, and we got to kind of pull this wire harness plastic out of the way. $10 for the battery terminals. As you can see, we have a battery hold down, but it's not doing anything. We have 4 more 10s. Intake out of the way. These should be 18s. Yep. Make sure the transmission is supported before you take those out. Save those. Volkswagen does recommend you replace those, so in my experience, I don't know anyone that usually replaces them. Just don't over torque them. And we got 16 mil here. Got an access hole right there. That's the socket. One more bolt, 13 mil right here. Just gotta pull that plastic back a little bit. We're gonna let the transmission down just a smidge. And Brandy secured the mount.
Are our holes lined up? I can't see. That one's lined up.
Like to get these all started by hand.
Goodbye, mini snap-on gun.
This heat is something. Go ahead and raise your transmission back up to the mount. I think this is where a lot of people break these bolts, is they try and pull the transmission up with the bolts. Lots of room here.
Let's find our oil leak.
Well, I believe that was the valve cover running down.
Oh, okay.
But we're gonna go ahead and adjust our shift linkage. To adjust this shift linkage, it's very similar on this 6-speed as it is to the 5-speed setups. You're gonna wanna make sure the car is in neutral. So you should be able to lift this up and down. And you're gonna wanna find this little black plastic looking lever here. And what you want to do is move this up and down, and then just gently put a little bit of pressure on this lever down here till you can push it in and pull up, and that's going to lock this in the set position for adjusting the linkage. Now the next thing I do is take these adjusters here, and you want to, I apologize, you want to pull forward on them, and then you just twist them to lock them open. Now our cables can move freely without moving the tower. See that? And we'll go inside the car for the next step. Go ahead and remove your shift boot here. Just pull it up. And what the hell do we have going on here? That is some ghetto shit. I'm not sure what the hell somebody did here, but is definitely not how it's supposed to be. That's depressing. So normally on most cars with a stock shifter, there's a little hole here on the base of the shifter, and then there's also a hole on the shifter rod. And what you would do is pull this till those line up, and usually like a small drill bit or like a 5mm Allen key would fit in there, and that would hold your shifter right where it's supposed to be, which is kind of, it's like in a neutral position, but it's sort of back to the left if I remember right. So I'm just gonna kind of eyeball what I have here, because somebody did some ghetto shifter mod to this thing, so it has like a pull up for reverse like a Subaru or something. I'm not sure why they would do that. Anyway, we'll just see if we can get lucky here. So all you got to do is kind of, once you'd have that all set on a normal car, you just want to hold both of them and twist that lock, so the spring, and then that's going to lock your shifter in position, and then flip off this this lock down here. So now let's see if that helps at all. Feels better.
First isn't where third goes, is it?
Only way to really know is drive it, but it does feel better already. Kind of gets stuck in reverse. Well, that feels a lot better. I'm sorry that this thing's ghetto and I couldn't show you the factory way, but okay, so these cars have two clutch position switches. One is just the clutch position switch. That's for starting the car, so that's what ensures that the clutch has to be depressed when you start the car. The other one is for the cruise control. They sit in the car like this. This one's on top, this one's below. You have to take that lower dash panel off. There's a couple like T20 Torx bolts that you have to take out. We'll go under there now. I already took the old ones out, I think. This is one of the old ones. And you can see there's two different size tabs here. They lock it in, but that keeps it only going in the correct way. So let's move to the inside of the car.
I'm stuck.
Don't be stuck. Get unstuck. You might
With goo gone.
come on that side.
Goo gone, Ed. You hear? You said get unstuck with goo gone. I'm gonna sit then. There's a key over here. And a ratchet. And I dropped something. Well, oh, this.
Alright, let me see the GoPro. Alright, so coming under the driver's side of the dash, we have this kick panel, like lower dash cover off. You can see here the cruise control clutch switch, and right there is where the other one turns in. So we're just gonna twist that out, maybe. Take this one, line the bigger tab up with the bigger hole. Turn it clockwise, take our black plug, maybe, plug that in, and take our new cruise control one, and that has a skinny tab and a fatter tab. You can see the holes there where it goes. Lock that in, plug it in, and that's that. It's really not that hard. We'll put our plastic cover back in there, and then we'll check it and see if they work. So the first thing we want to do is try and start the car. Make sure we're in neutral.
Has coolant in it?
We're not going to run it long enough for it to matter. I'm going to start the car. Did you record any of that?
It is recording. It just beeped randomly.
Oh, okay. Alright, sorry. I heard the GoPro beep and got scared. We're going to see if we can start it without the clutch in. Again, making sure we're in neutral. No crank, so...
Did it crank before?
No. So that click was the sensor setting. And we're going to push the clutch in and see if it starts. Nope. Okay. Back underneath, I guess. I think the bracket for that top clutch position sensor is I think the sensor bracket is bent. Alright, after some fiddling with that bracket for the sensor, you want to go ahead and turn the key, make sure it's in neutral, no start. Go ahead, push your clutch to the floor, and she should start up. Now let the clutch out, go ahead, try and start it. If it starts, then you got an issue. You got to play with that bracket and adjust the sensor. You can kind of pull it out. It has multiple settings, and as you push it in, it kind of sets it at that setting, so you might have to pull it out and adjust and mess with that bracket if you're having issues like I did. Then one more time, clutch to the floor, it starts, turn it off, we're good. Shouldn't be able to start without pushing the clutch. Now the reason that this is an issue on this car is this has a stage 1 or stage 2 tune on it, and a lot of times the launch control and the 2-step use that clutch sensor to activate. Since the old sensor was bad, and it may have been rigged like that too, just so the car would start every time, because when the sensor went bad, it probably wouldn't let the car start. But it basically thought the clutch was depressed all the time, so that means it was constantly trying to 2-step. This car with a stock ECU and a stock tune probably would have drove just fine with that sensor the way it was, if it was able to start. So that's where we're at with the clutch. Customer brought us a new coolant bubble, which I totally approve of, before we filled it with new coolant. I believe the main fan isn't working either. And I think that's what kind of threw me off on the head gasket thing, because normally you can run water in these and that fan will kick on before the water boils, and that main fan hasn't kicked on at all. Granted, it hasn't overheated, and the secondary fan does kick on and keep it from overheating. This is one of the cool things about that torque app. I got some real-time data here. We got the RPMs, throttle, speed, vacuum, kind of cool to watch. And as we're bleeding this cooling system, this is the one that I'm really keeping an eye on. You can get an exact coolant temperature number from the ECU as opposed to just watching the gauge, because a lot of times on these newer vehicles, the gauges are just kind of dummy gauges. They're gonna work their way up to the middle once the car comes up to temp, and they're gonna stay in the middle even if it gets a little hot. They won't really go up until the car is actually overheating on most of these vehicles. Going for a ride, we came back and the coolant bubble's moaning and groaning, making all kinds of noise. It's still not overheating, but it's like the cooling system's boiling or has excess pressure in it. I'm kind of back on the head gasket theory again, so we're going to do a compression test, all 4 cylinders, see what compression we're getting. And then I also picked up a cooling pressure tester, so we're going to pressurize the cooling system and see if it holds pressure. In order to do a compression test, first thing we want to do is remove the coil packs and the spark plugs. Next thing is you want to disable the fuel system. Most times you just unplug the fuel pump relay or unplug the fuel pump or the fuel pump fuse. Because on this motor the injector plugs are so easy to get to, I just unplugged that, so that should suffice so we don't fill the cylinders full of fuel. So here's a compression tester. You can either borrow, rent, or buy one of these at your local parts store. This one was like 30 bucks. It comes with a couple extra fittings and stuff. You want to take the right end, basically match this end up to your spark plug with whatever kit you have. You're going to want to thread that into the cylinder. We're going to start on cylinder 1. And this helps if you have 2 people, but you're going to want to go in the car, hold the gas pedal to the floor and crank it until this gauge stops going up. Go ahead, Brandy.
How the heck do I do that without starting it?
Put in, well, it's not going to start. It has no spark plug. Make sure it's in neutral.
And do what?
Just crank it. Gas pedal to the floor. Okay. So we're looking like 195, 190, probably about 190 in cylinder 1. All right, cylinder 2, go ahead, Brandy. Okay. Looks like a little bit less, but still pretty close. 185 to 190. Cylinder 3, go ahead, Brandy. Okay. Cylinder 3 is about 180. Cylinder 4, go ahead, Brandy. Okay. We're looking about 190 in cylinder 4. So here are the cylinder readings. Off the top of my head, my phone's dead, so I don't know what the actual PSI should be, but they look pretty close to what they should be, and they're all within 5% or so of each other. So compression wise, the motor looks pretty healthy. Now we're going to go pressurize the cooling system with the cooling pressure tester and see what happens. This is a cooling system pressure tester. They make these kits to fit multiple vehicles. You want to find the adapter that fits your radiator or expansion tank here. For us, it's this blue one. You get your pump here, clip it on, and then you watch this gauge. You really want to go off of how much pressure your rad cap's supposed to hold. So like there's anywhere from like 12 psi to 16 or higher. We're just going to go in the middle with a 15 psi and see if it holds pressure. This is also a good way to see if you have any leaks. We'll let that sit for a minute or two and see what the pressure is. The cooling system pressure didn't drop, at least not significantly. It might have dropped like 1 psi, but that could have just been leakage in the pump or the tool, and that was over a period of probably 10-15 minutes. So I was keeping an eye down in the cylinders. I didn't see any coolant coming into there while I had the pressure on the cooling system and the spark plugs out. So at this point, I'm not condemning the head gasket yet. We're going to start pulling some parts off of our 18T and swapping them out one at a time to try and do process of elimination, figure out what's going on here. I think first thing I'm going to do, just because we already have them out, is I'm going to go pull the spark plugs and coil packs out of our GTI, put them in here, go take this for a ride and see how it does. Just got all the spark plugs and coil packs swapped into this thing from our GTI, which we know is good because it makes 20, I don't know, 4 pounds of boost on a stock KO3 with 210,000 miles on it. Let's go take this girl for a spin. Well, the coil packs weren't the issue. Now I'm swapping out the N75 valve, or the boost control solenoid, from our GTI, which we know is good. And we'll take this thing for another rip
And cross our fingers.
And then if that don't work, I really don't know what else to do. Could possibly be like clogged fuel filter or bad fuel.
What the?
Go get the GTI. Process of elimination here. We're going to try fuel pressure regulator from our GTI, which we know is good. Then if that doesn't work, I'm going to try and find the stock injectors from the GTI, and guess we'll give those a try. I apologize, I was getting pretty frustrated with this car. I stopped filming just because I was more worried about getting this car done for the customer than I was about making a video. Last night I think we left off, I forget where we left off, but we were swapping stuff around. Today I swapped the diverter valve back to stock. I made a little boost slash vacuum leak tester. I pressurized the system. I found a couple more small vacuum leaks that we fixed. We put a new fuel filter in it, and every time I'd go take it for a drive, same result. The thing would just buck and carry on. My buddy brought over some injectors. We tried new fuel injectors, still same issue. I was really running out of ideas here, so I posted on Facebook. I was asking for some more ideas. A couple people said map sensor, what else, fuel pump, check the fuel pressure, blah blah blah. And I'd say most of the time on these cars I don't bother checking the fuel pressure because they don't have a test port for that. But I ran down to AutoZone and they had a fuel pressure test kit. They had a little T-fitting, and I should have filmed this, but as a T-fitting, you took this high pressure or send, this is the return, this is the send for the fuel. You take the send off, put the T in there, and then connect this with another rubber hose, and you can then hook up the fuel pressure gauge. And we're getting about 36 psi at idle, which is a little bit on the low side. And obviously as you're getting into the boost and everything, you would want your fuel pressure to increase. The fuel pressure stayed at 36, if not dropped a little bit lower than that. It was actually pretty cool. The fuel pressure gauge had a long enough hose on it that I had Brandy hold the hose from the passenger side. We ran it up through the hood here, and she could hold it right here and watch it while we were driving. So that's definitely something to check out. Because that fuel pressure did read a little on the low side and it didn't increase when we were getting into it, we ended up getting a fuel pump and changing that out, and now she runs mint. I'm happy, and the customer should be real happy about that. Here's the old fuel pump.